So, the Jeffrey Epstein story. It's been all over the news, right? But what if everything we think we know is just scratching the surface? The source material we're digging into today paints a chillingly different picture. It argues this whole thing isn't some scandal from the past. It's a direct warning about our future.
Yeah, we all think we've got the story down. A monstrous billionaire, a list of powerful friends, these horrific crimes, and then this long, painful fight for justice. That's the story we've been told, the official narrative.
But what if? What if that's just the cover? The source we're looking at here says nope, not just a scandal. It claims this was a full-blown intelligence operation, a carefully, meticulously planned conspiracy with one goal: to control the most powerful people on the entire planet.
And right there, that's the heart of it. On one side, you have what the media says. It's a sex scandal. It's about crime and punishment. But on the other, this source is arguing it was an intelligence op all about control and blackmail. And that these files being released, they aren't about yesterday. They're a weapon being aimed squarely at tomorrow.
Okay, so this is a really crucial point. Where is this info even coming from? We're not talking about internet rumors or some press leak. According to the source, these are official court documents. They were released by a judge. They contain testimony given under oath. That's where their power comes from. And get this, the claim is that what we've seen is just the tip of the iceberg. The really sensitive stuff, still hidden.
All right, so to really wrap our heads around this theory, we have to start with the location. The island, Little St. James. The source argues it wasn't just some fancy getaway. It was a weapon built for a purpose. So let's break down why. I mean, think about it. Why an island? Why go through all that trouble? Why not just a penthouse in New York City or a huge mansion somewhere in London? Well, according to this theory, that choice wasn't random at all. It was strategic, and it was absolutely essential. And this is where you can really start to see the strategy. The island basically gave them 4 pillars of control. First, you've got absolute control. No cops showing up unannounced, no nosy neighbors. Second, legal isolation. It was in this weird legal gray zone, a total black hole when it came to who was in charge. Third, and this is a big one, total privacy. That's the number one thing these high-profile guests want, right? And finally, psychological manipulation. When you're on that island, you're cut off from everything. You're in a completely closed environment, which makes you way, way easier to control.
So, if you follow this line of thinking, the island's real purpose wasn't parties and pleasure. Not at all. It was a kind of human sorting facility, almost like a lab, designed to lure in the world's elite, test their morals, and then flip them into assets that could be controlled. It wasn't a playground. It was a trap.
Okay, so how did this trap actually work? How do you go from being an honored guest to a controlled asset? Well, the source claims there was a very specific system in place. This wasn't just happening by chance, it was a process. The system, allegedly, sorted everyone who visited into one of 3 buckets. First, you have the ambitious. These are the people who showed up looking for power, to make deals. They left as blackmailed assets. Then you have the corrupt. These guys were already looking for, let's just say, forbidden activities. They became willing partners in the whole thing. And finally, you have the unwitting. People who were just curious or felt like they had to go for social reasons. They left as compromised witnesses, silenced by what they saw. And at the core of this whole sorting machine was a pretty simple test, really. When you were confronted with something truly awful, what did you do? Did you join in? Did you just look the other way? Or did you speak up? Your answer apparently determined what went in your file and how useful you'd be to the system down the line. And this leads to a really crucial point about Jeffrey Epstein himself. The source is very clear on this. He wasn't the mastermind. He was more like a manager, an employee, as they put it, running one part of a much, much bigger operation. He might have been the face of it, but he wasn't the brain. So you might be asking, okay, if this was all so secret, why are the files leaking now? That's a great question, and the source argues that the timing is no accident. In fact, these leaks are a very deliberate, very strategic message. Look at how the source lays out this timeline. It's pretty chilling. In 2019, Epstein, the tool, gets arrested. He's off the board. Then he dies, and the guy who knew all the secrets is silenced.
Fast forward to now, and suddenly all this leverage, all this blackmail material collected over decades, it's being deployed as a weapon. So, according to this theory, forget about justice. This is a raw power play. The leaks are basically a warning shot, fired in public from one powerful group to another. And the message is crystal clear. We have the files. We have the dirt on you and everyone you know. Comply or you're next. We're talking about blackmail on a global scale here.
And this is where the theory takes its darkest turn. What was the end game in all of this? Why go to all this trouble? The source claims it was about something way more sinister than just blackmail. It was about fundamentally changing the very nature of leadership itself. The goal, it's argued, was to literally erase empathy, to systematically strip it away from the people who would one day run the world. The idea was to create leaders who could do the unthinkable and not even blink. There's this one alleged email exchange from the files that, well, it really sums up this mindset. Someone reportedly writes, "There are many children in the world, but not much cream cheese." The reply? Just lol. According to the source, that's not just sick humor. It's proof of a total, engineered detachment from humanity.
And the source claims there was a method to creating this mindset. It's actually a known psychological process. You just keep exposing someone to extreme, horrific things. At first, of course, they're shocked, but eventually, the brain just kind of numbs itself to cope. Shock becomes indifference, guilt gets replaced by this feeling of power. And what you're left with is a leader who doesn't see people. They see numbers, they see tools.
So where does this all lead? What's the point? The source connects this whole machine, the island, the blackmail, the psychological conditioning, to a terrifying final act that it claims is playing out right now, behind the scenes. The ultimate goal, from this viewpoint, is to use that blackmail to force world leaders into doing things they'd never normally do. Specifically, to push the world toward a huge global conflict. A great reset that would allow a whole new world order to rise from the ashes. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, the source highlights a truly horrifying number. An estimated 8 million children go missing around the world every single year. The argument here is that Epstein's Island wasn't some isolated thing. It was just one part, one single node, in a massive hidden network that needs a constant, tragic supply to keep running. Which brings us to the final, really unsettling question this whole theory leaves us with. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. But if the death of one employee didn't stop anything, if it didn't dismantle the operation, then what does that say about the system itself? The source material argues that the real story isn't about the man who died. It's about the machine. And that machine is still running.